that welcoming to our output today is Ruth Wasserman Lande. She's a former member of the Knesset and advisor to President and Prime Minister Shimon Peres. Ruth, a warm welcome to the show here at talkTV.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's an honor to be with you on the show.
Wonderful. I'm really pleased to have you because, Ruth, your story as a young Israeli started in Soviet Russia before your penniless parents came to Israel and built a life. Can you just explain your background?
So my family came to Israel in 1972. They actually fled, more or less, the former USSR with nothing. They came to Israel and settled in the southwestern city of Ashdod. I was born in Israel several years later and grew up in Ashdod until I was 8 years old. We then moved to South Africa, where I spent all of my schooling years, and came to Israel on my own when I was 17 and had completed my high school education.
The other fascinating thing about you is that you have spent your life in, should we say, a multi-ethnic, pluralistic Israel, living among indigenous Arabs, and you also lived in Lod in your adult life. Now, not many people know this at all, that Lod is the oldest city in Israel. It is the grave of St. George of England, amongst other patron saints. It is a major Christian place. Can you just outline for us the cooperation that there is on the ground between Jews and Arabs in the modern state of Israel?
Of course. So I spent a lot of my professional life working with Arab Israelis, or as Dr. Youssef before me would have said, Palestinians of Israeli citizenship. I was working with them on creating sustainable sources of income in different Arab villages throughout Israel and so on. I speak Arabic. I spent 3 years of my professional life also being the deputy director, the deputy ambassador, if you wish, of the Israeli embassy in Cairo. 3 whole years of my life, I was the Israeli Jewish Ashkenazi woman in an Arab state, which was an interesting...
How did you get on?
I'm sorry?
How did you get on, Ruth?
I got on well because I came expecting that there would be a lot of misconception and a lot of stereotypes regarding Jews and Israelis, and there were, because a lot of the information that is given, people who are in different Arab countries creates a kind of a stereotype about what is an Israeli and what is really a Jewish person. In Israel, however, many people don't know that 22% of the population are indeed Arabs who have full citizenship. We have different Arab parties in the parliament, of course, completely equal voting rights, freedom of religious practice, which is not something that is obvious in the Middle East and elsewhere, although there are beautiful countries like the United Arab Emirates and others where freedom of religion is, of course, seen. Also, I lived and worked in a city called Lod. As you had said, it's very near the airport. It's an undisputed city in Israel. It's not over the Green Line and not next to the Green Line, just a regular mixed Arab-Jewish city. And it is indeed the oldest one in Israel, older than Jaffa, older than Jerusalem. It is estimated at 8,000 years old. And indeed, St. George, who slayed the dragon, the patron saint of England, of Georgia, of other countries, is in fact buried in a Greek Orthodox church in the city of Lod. And everybody's invited, and of course, it is open to visit. But the point is that Arab Israelis and Jewish Israelis live side by side in Israel. They go to the same supermarkets, they go to the same hospitals. Over 35% of the doctors and the nurses in my country are Arab. Some of them are Christian, but the Christian Arabs are a minority within a minority. Some of them are, the majority of them are, in fact, Muslim. There are judges, Supreme Court judges who are Muslim Arabs, and so on and so forth. And the most interesting thing, I think, if you allow me to say one more sentence, is that some of these Arabs also serve in the Israeli Defense Forces. The Druze have obligatory and compulsory service. The Druze is a different religion. They're not Muslims, but they speak Arabic. It's yet another minority. And a lot of the Bedouin Muslim Arabs serve in the IDF. It's a voluntary service. In other words, they're not made to serve. They can if they want to. And other Muslims who want to serve in the IDF can, or in the police forces, they can, but they are not obligated to, like the Jews who at the age of 18, whether boy or girl, have to serve the country.
It is very important to state that there are Arab Muslims fighting in the IDF, and as you say, there are High Court judges and many doctors from the Arab population curing all Israelis, be they Arabs, Jews, Christians, whatever they might be.
May I add another point that I think...
Please do. I've got another cracking question for you in a second, though, when you're ready, Ruth.
Sure. It's a very significant point that I think is being missed in a lot of the discourse in the international media, particularly about what had happened on October 7th. You see, those villages next to the Gaza border, the southern border of Israel, next to those villages in which many Jews were simply murdered, raped, carnaged, there is an area, the Negev area, which is populated by Bedouin Muslim Arabs. And some of them were massacred as well. In fact, some women who had said to the terrorists that they were Muslim and they had a head covering were also slaughtered. Yeah. Some of them were also kidnapped to Gaza. So this is something that nobody mentions really, but they are amongst the kidnapped civilians as well.
It is absolutely key to notice that the hostage makeup is an example of the pluralism of Israel, Jew, Bedouin, and indeed there were Tanzanian workers who were murdered, Nepalese, Thai workers. It's an appalling tragedy. Now, can we talk, Ruth, about the possibility of peace beyond the Palestinian issue? Are you an advocate of looking to the success of the Abraham Accords, peace with the Gulf Arabs, that could be extended, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but with Saudi cooperation, the keepers of the holy temples of the Muslim world? Can a Saudi-Israel peace, which seemed so much on the cards in recent months, be restored after this awful war?
So first of all, I'm a huge propagator of the Abraham Accords. In fact, I'm a huge propagator of cooperation in general. We do need to take into account, however, that not everybody wants to cooperate. And I'm particularly saying that because what had happened recently has perhaps highlighted the difficulty in really grappling with the Palestinian-Israeli question. But if we look at the broader picture, while I was a member of the parliament, a member of the Israeli Knesset, I in fact we launched while I was there and I was chairing the Pro-Abraham Accords Caucus. I think that this is an essential part of growth and prosperity in the region. We had seen that peace was forged, or rather, if you want, an agreement was forged between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco. Not an easy one because a lot of the publics in those countries were taught and in fact were nurtured with the idea that Israel was the enemy until that agreement had been signed, despite the fact that for years clandestine cooperation did take place between Israeli business people and business people elsewhere. But the UAE leadership was particularly forthcoming and forward-looking in the way that it was open to integrate the region for the sake of the people, for the sake of technological cooperation, for the sake of cooperation in the fields of medicine. And one example was the pandemic and the whole ability to search for solutions together. Of course, on the economic level, but also on the security and the strategic level, because we all share a common enemy, and whether politically correct or incorrect, Iran and the proxies of Iran were and still are perceived as a potential enemy. And why? Because Iran works almost in a spider-like, webby manner, creating proxies in Yemen via the Houthis, which had attacked again and again Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and now do that against Israel and Israeli targets. We had never done anything against Yemen or the Houthis, but they are an arm of Iran.
Yes,
likewise with the Iranian militias in Syria that have been attacking us, even though there is no attack on the southern part of Syria.
Indeed. Ruth, let me ask you, throughout history, major wars involving Israel have ended with the Prime Minister of the country at the time, their career ending, and perhaps in seclusion. We think about Menachem Begin in 1982 at the Lebanon War. We think about Golda Meir in the shocking war of 1973, which was an existential battle against the armies of Egypt and Syria. No doubt, when this is shaken up, Benjamin Netanyahu will be history, and his legacy will be tarnished by October the 7th. What do you hope for in terms of an Israeli leadership? Because you're not part of the Likud, you're part of the opposition, aren't you?
I'm part of the opposition at the moment. The head of my party, former Minister of Defense Benny Gantz, is actually in the war cabinet. He came into the decision-making circle despite disagreeing with Benjamin Netanyahu, the current prime minister, because of the state of events and the state of emergency, and because of his worry and concern for the country. And I can just say a very simple thing. What I want and what I'm looking for is Israeli unity. Unity amidst all people, Jews and non-Jews within Israel, right and left, who feel that Israel is their home and are willing to really do what they can to contribute to the prosperity, to the growth of this country. And this is something that is not a given. There are Druze people giving their lives, Bedouin people giving their lives, right, left wingers fighting together, shoulder by shoulder. And this is what I want to see continue. The unity of the Jewish people and generally the Israeli population, as well as the beautiful relationship that has emerged after October 7th between the diaspora Jews, regardless of their affinity, right wing, left wing, to what the people of Israel had suffered, because this country has never, ever undergone such a heinous attack as it had on October 7th. And I can tell you, it took me personally a month to even try and get over it. And I'm a very strong person. I cannot even begin to think what the families of the kidnapped civilians are feeling like, not to mention families of girls who had been gang raped, also having to listen to many people in the world saying that this is something that the Israelis had made up. One needs to be very, very, very ill to think and to say anything like that.
Indeed. Ruth Wasserman Lande, thank you very much for reminding us, because it has fallen off the news agenda, to much of the disgust of many people, fair-minded people, not just Jewish people, but British people, people around the world, fair-minded people, that the horrors of October the 7th still need to be kept in mind, not to mention the 240 or so hostages who are hidden around Gaza in tunnels and various other places that, again, we do not know exactly.